You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. First, before we get started, make sure to subscribe to us from wherever you get your podcasts. Both your subscription and your feedback help us out a lot. This is episode 77 of Range Minded, where we talk about buying, selling, and trading firearms, whether through a dealer, the internet, and all the other legal means of firearms transactions. Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy episode 77 of Range Minded, the ins and outs of buying and selling firearms. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting.
Yes, it is.
And if you hear the difference, Steve and I are right across from each other.
Which doesn't happen often enough.
Not often enough by any means. And we're actually recording in the Independence Indoor Shooting gunsmith office shop.
But we're not doing a gunsmith show. We're just commandeering his space.
We just have no other space to record.
Which is a good thing, but there's classes everywhere tonight.
Yeah, there's an RSO class going on, there's a medical class going on, a lot going on. And I have a Bundaberg in my hand.
So I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, like I'm a Bundaberg freak.
You are a big fan.
And Bundaberg life, yo. Hashtag. So I brought one for Mark to try. So this is...
Yes, and thank you very much.
So I decided, why not we just record his reaction?
A live review.
As he drinks it.
Of what this is.
And not that that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, but I just love Bundies.
Yeah, well, let's give it a whirl. So
I'm going to open mine too.
Tell me a little bit about like where this came from and how you got hooked on it.
All right, so I spent some time in Australia about 20 years ago. That's crazy to believe.
Wow.
So I'm a freak now because I like Vegemite.
Right.
And I love Bundaberg. So Bundaberg ginger beer. The ginger beer we get in the States just absolutely blows. Like it just sucks.
Sure.
I haven't had one that tastes good.
Okay.
So when I found these at World Market.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, did I.
You lit up.
Yes.
That's great.
It was a good day. And now I buy a lot at World Market. Which they're probably even cheaper somewhere else.
Sure.
But it's an Australian product.
Mm-hmm. It says Australian family owned right here.
Family owned. And they do actually make alcohol. Like, it's not a small brewery. They actually make adult beverages, if you will.
Sure.
But this is non-alcoholic.
This is a non-alcoholic beverage, yeah.
And it's made with, as it might imply, real ginger. There's actually ginger root floating around inside there. It's really cloudy. It's not like a soda pop.
Yeah, it is. You can't even see through it like you would be like a Sprite or a clear pop or whatever, because it's a lot of ginger beer I think you can see through.
And I think it's because it's a synthetic flavor, where this is legit.
Yeah, this is like got 6 ingredients on it. So you know it's real deal.
Yeah, and it is so good.
Yeah, a little bit of sugar too.
I don't care if it's got sugar in it. Why do you think I'm fat?
Because you have one of these all the time.
I have one literally every podcast.
Well, there you go. You can't stop now.
And I'm sure I've taken a picture of the shelf that I stick the bottles on.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll take another one.
Please do. You got to bring this one back with you, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, and the other thing is there's a strange pull top. It's not like your average, like, bottle.
And if you think about it, like, I'm older than you. If some of our older listeners might remember the old school pull tab cans.
Oh, never seen one.
You're so young.
Never seen one.
It's kind of like that. Okay. And this is the way a lot of bottles are in Australia.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So, I mean, they still have kind of the old twist tops like you might think in the Coca-Cola bottles.
Right.
But there's a lot like this over there.
Yeah. So, how do you even open this? You said you have to roll it around first.
So, the secret is that because you got to suspend the ginger in the fluid. So, you just kind of, you don't shake it because it is a little carbonated. But not much. So, you just kind of roll it around.
Yeah.
Get the bits and pieces flowing around.
Gotcha. Okay.
And as I do this, I drool. It's like Pavlov's dog, you know?
Me too, a little bit now. I'm starting to, feel it.
And so once it's there, you just...
It's not going to spray all over the electronics, is it?
We'll find out, won't we?
Oof. Pull out. Ooh.
Yeah, pull forward.
Pull out, then up. Oh, that's easy.
Yep.
Thought it was going to be a lot more dramatic than that.
No. I actually have shaken one of these up because I'm stupid sometimes.
There you go. Well, cheers.
Yeah.
This is great. Here we go.
You got to savor it. You don't just chug it.
Oh, wow.
It is so good.
That's great.
And the
little carbonation, a lot of a good sweet.
And because the ginger
really cuts the sweet down, too.
It's got a burn to it, and that's what I like.
Yeah.
It's kind of like eating sushi, you know how they give you the ginger to clean your palate?
Oh, sure.
This is amazing with pizza.
Oh, wow. Nice. Yeah, Bundaberg.
Yeah, it's the bomb.
Accepting sponsorships now from Bundaberg in Australia.
I hashtag a lot. I'm surprised they haven't got a hold of me yet.
Especially some Yankee talking about Talking about their own.
Guns and ginger beer.
Yeah. Just the Idaho way.
That's right.
That's quite good.
And I hope they're jealous because we actually get to play with guns.
We sure do. And that's what we're talking about today, despite the last 5 minutes, if you've made it this far.
So hopefully that wasn't too in the weeds.
Yeah, not at all. But we're going to be talking about. I don't think we've talked about this really before. I think we maybe touched on it a little bit.
I think we've talked about it a little bit, like a long time ago.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about buying guns, trading guns, selling guns, just kind of a general overview because we haven't really done it. We've done buying your first gun, doing. We haven't done selling guns.
No, I don't. Maybe not. Well, we can still talk about it.
Yeah,
either way.
Yeah, we're going to cover it. We might have covered it already, but especially because we were looking at some of the consignments and stuff in the store.
Yeah.
And I think there's some people who are uninformed.
And I got to be careful because I don't know if they listen, but there may be some firearms on consignment that the owners are a little ambitious.
Could be. But hey, you know what? It's their guns, their time.
That's true. I mean,
maybe they're just waiting for the right buyer.
And honestly, I've taken guns on consignment here at the store where, I'll say, hey, here's Gun Broker, look what they're selling for. And they're adamant that that's the price they want. So I'll list it and I'll say, hey, it's probably not going to move.
Right.
I'll just be honest with you.
And it'll just hang out here.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't know, maybe consignment's a way just to get it out of the house. Be like, well, it's not here anymore. And then go to your wife or significant other and say, oh, well, it didn't sell, so I got to keep it. Sorry.
And I'm not going to lie, on the dealer standpoint, I hate consignments. It's a waste of time on the dealer standpoint.
Interesting.
It's taking up space that I could be putting other guns out.
Right, and you're not making a ton of money.
I'm not making a lot of money on it. Yeah. And it's more headache because I have to do, honestly, a little bit more paperwork. Taking the gun in.
Oh, sure.
Selling it's the same, but then I got to get a hold of the guy that had it on consignment. It's
right.
A little bit more of a headache than it's worth, I think.
Well, we'll get to consignmins then once we get to selling.
We'll get there.
It's already got opinions.
Yeah, I'm full of them.
That's okay. But so let's start with just how to buy your a gun. Doesn't have to be your first gun. It can be any gun. There are more than one way to buy a gun for sure.
I think it's important right now to preface that yes, you can buy a gun from an individual. That is not against the law.
Correct.
It's completely legal. In fact, honestly, I couldn't cite the law, but there's provisions in federal law that it's none of the government's business who owns what.
Really?
Unless they're a felon, obviously.
Right.
But the government cannot take a record and keep a record of who has what.
Right, and that's what a lot of people think of as that loophole, the gun show loophole.
The gun show loophole that does not exist.
Right.
But when it comes to private party, absolutely, you can buy private party. And I'm trying to think. Honestly, I don't think I've ever bought private party sale.
I haven't. I've sold one private party. And we'll get to that with selling or whatever. Also, let's COA that we're talking about legal purchasing and legal selling of firearms. Yes. Obviously, there's a lot of illegal ways to do it.
Yeah,
but
and it's also, I guess, another important thing we can throw in here is when it comes to restricted persons, that still applies. Like, sure, you can buy a gun if you're a felon, but you just
committed another felony.
You just enhanced the crime you just committed because you're a felony, and now there's a weapons charge involved. And so,
you're up a creek.
Yeah. So we're definitely not endorsing felons buying guns.
Not by any means. But let's start with buying because that's the more fun part, I would say. Obviously, I
hope my wife's not listening.
The easiest way is to go into a gun shop, look around, find a gun.
And honestly, that's my favorite way to buy a gun anyways.
Sure. And there's pros and cons to all the different ways to buy guns.
Because an individual, there's just one gun to look at when you're buying.
Right.
And that's it. But when I go into a gun show, which I haven't been to a fantastic gun show in years, now there's just junk, in my opinion, there.
Right, and beef jerky.
And books, and like bottle caps.
Yeah.
But going to the dealer and looking, I like here, when I got here tonight, first thing I did.
Start looking around.
Used counter.
Yep.
First place I go to.
That's why I got here early.
And because there still can be good deals found at dealers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And some dealers get that, and they'll use it as kind of like a loss leader, something that they're willing to draw people in, because then you can upsell more product, and there you're getting your margins, meaning more profit when you sell merchandise instead of firearms.
Yeah, because you can get cases or magazines or ammo to go with or whatever, or shooting.
And a good salesman will upsell you.
Oh, yeah.
So be prepared for that if you go into a shop.
Yeah, and that's going to be any shop, and it's going to depend on whether it's a bigger shop or a smaller, maybe a mom and pop or whatever, but you're always going to get upsold.
Yeah.
And
in my experience, the mom and pop shops tend to have better deals.
I would say so.
I go to some of the big box stores that are in multi-states and have various names. Some of them start with S, maybe a C in there as well.
Or they come, or there's multiple.
Yeah, multiple locations in a city.
Multiple,
kind of yeah. They tend to be overpriced because they have greater overhead to cover.
Yeah, they've got more people to pay. They've got more square footage that they're renting or paying for or whatever.
Yeah,
so
their burden costs are higher.
The guns are always going to be more expensive. I don't think I've ever seen a gun at any of those big box stores that are cheaper than a locally owned or a mom and pop shop.
Some of them are ridiculously overpriced. The sad thing is somebody's going to pay it.
Oh, yeah, because they don't know any better. And I would say that's the first thing is to kind of price shop. There's a lot of websites you can look at to see, because there's a whole big difference between new and used, too.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about this too. Dealers, at least we do here at the shop, we rely a lot on Gunbroker. Because that's a pretty fair assessment of the market value, what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it's an auction site and sometimes things go astronomical. But for the most part, there's, the buy it now options or whatever. If you guys haven't been on Gunbroker,
it's like the eBay for guns, basically.
Yeah, and it doesn't ship to your house. So
nope.
Internet gun sales, that's a whole other show.
We'll get to that in a minute.
But it's a good base value of what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
And so we base a lot of our used guns purchases off that. And then obviously, hopefully a trained eye sees if there's problems or whatever. But as a buyer, you can use that same option, and it kind of gives you an idea. If you understand margins, profit margins, then you have a little bit of negotiating power.
Just a little bit.
Into the store.
And that's one other thing too. That's kind of it's an open secret, I guess, is that the profit margins on firearms are very, very small.
Super slim. And here's a dirty little secret. Usually, dealers' profit margins are higher on the used stuff than the new stuff. Usually. Well,
because you have money into it and you got to make money on it, and it's taking up space.
Yep. And so that's why I usually flock to the used stuff, because I have a better chance of getting what I feel is a good deal.
Yeah, and there's just going to be more variety.
Yeah.
Obviously, in let's say your garden variety gun shop, you're going to have your new Glocks, your new Springfields, your new SIGs, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Stuff you've seen online all the time. But you go to a used counter or a part, which is usually part of a shop, you're going to see like there's a Smith & Wesson 4006 out there.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of older revolvers, a lot of stuff that maybe you kind of like, but there's a Jericho 941 in there.
Yeah.
Granted, it's in 40, but still.
It's not a completely dead caliber.
It's still there.
Yeah.
But you're going to see things that maybe you wouldn't see in the new counters.
And you know what? That we talk about 40, and that just made me think of something right off the bat. So the market is getting flooded with 40 cal.
A bunch.
Flooded.
If you subscribe to any like online like sites like Aim Surplus or Gun.Deals or whatever, you'll see all these police trade-ins.
Yeah.
And they're all 40 caliber. And
I don't mind 40. My first or second handgun was in 40, and I still have that gun, and I like that gun. It actually shoots quite well. It's an old Springfield. So that being said, if you don't mind recoil, or if you don't mind spending a little bit of money modifying a 40,
you can convert it into a 9.
A 9, yeah. So you might get a smoking deal. Like I have a Glock 35, for example. And if I wanted to spend the money on a barrel, a couple $100, I could have a 9mm.
Right.
In a full long frame, slide.
Especially if it's maybe something that's harder to get a hold of or usually more expensive. You might be able to work it out to where you can convert it to a 9, yeah.
And I don't mind shooting 40. It's a little bit more money, but the recoil, it is a little bit more.
Yeah. Just depends. It's personal preference, really.
But if you're looking for a bargain or a truck gun or honestly a woods gun, 40 is going to do okay.
Sure.
Maybe not against a 1,200-pound grizzly.
A bear, yeah.
But there's also stories of people taking out bears with 9mm.
Right. It's better than nothing.
It is way better than a pocket knife and a can of bear spray.
That's true. So that's something to look for too. But maybe if you're in the market for a new gun, obviously you can come into a shop and and get your hands on it and feel it and even rent them. And that's a big thing too, that I think is a pro as opposed to online. You can't really handle a gun or even shoot a gun online.
Well, it's not like Amazon. So I love Amazon. I buy a lot of crap, too much crap on Amazon.
Sure.
But what do people do? Like if you're buying a pair of shoes, what are you going to do first?
Check the reviews.
Oh, okay. Then what?
And then like find my size.
Okay, but how do you know that size is going to fit?
Because I have other shoes.
But do you know if they're all size the same?
No. Are you saying you order multiple sizes?
I go to the shoe store and try on the shoe size of that brand, and then I just order it on Amazon and save $2 in free shipping.
Right.
After I spent all that gas money driving around town trying to find
it makes perfect sense.
Completely obvious, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are that way too when it comes to
guns.
Other merchandise.
Sure.
They try it on and then they jump to online to do that. You're right. So firearms, you don't have that opportunity, which makes ranges like Independence so valuable for the firearm consumer, because holding a gun, looking at a gun is different than holding a gun.
Right.
Holding a gun is drastically different than shooting a gun.
Right.
Like the LCP, for example. Fantastic gun. Like, it's small.
Right.
And I really do believe it's a good gun.
But it shoots, it's reliable, it's reasonably accurate, and you can conceal it anywhere.
But it sucks to shoot.
Yeah, it's not comfortable.
Yeah, and I've talked to people when I worked in another range. Like, that was his range gun. Like,
really?
It was his carry gun, and that's what, I admire that, because he would shoot once a week with that gun religiously.
So he was probably pretty good with it.
And he didn't mind the recoil.
Right.
And he was a big guy. Like, he was taller than me. Not that I'm tall, but he was a bigger guy than I was.
Yeah.
So putting that gun in his hand, which was super tiny, it all depends. So I guess what I'm boiling down to is not all guns fit everybody. There's not one gun for everybody.
Well, and another example of that is, when I first got into gun stuff, I really, really wanted to like HK. Like, I just, man, those look really nice. They look really sharp.
But you bought a Walther,
comfortable.
which is basically the same thing.
Well, but see, the thing is, the HK doesn't fit my hand as well, and it's not as comfortable.
To me, they feel exactly the same.
Nope. See, but to me, it's different. The HK feels more boxy. It doesn't feel as smooth and as round as a Walther does. And
really?
And the trigger guard safeties notwithstanding,
and the mag release is different.
I'm sorry, the trigger guard mag release or whatever, paddle mag release. Jeez, why can't I think of that?
Which is, anyway, that's a different show.
But it doesn't feel right in my hand, and it's just I can't even explain what it is, and I want to like HKs, but I just don't. I can't do it.
And both guns both manufacturers are fabulous manufacturers.
Yeah, top of the line.
And you would think by the shoe logic,
it'd be the same.
I'll just get a full size instead of the compact, and it'll be just fine. No, it won't be, because it feels different in your hand.
Well, and then you bring up a good point too with the sizes. Let's say a Glock 19 as opposed to a 17. If somebody's got really big hands, maybe they won't like shooting a 19 near as much as a 17, or other way around.
And honestly, we have a customer here that can't shoot Glocks. He's a mountain of a man. Like, this dude is not fat. He's just a mountain of a man.
He's like a fridge.
And he can't shoot a Glock 17 because his finger doesn't fit inside the trigger guard.
Seriously.
Like I said, he is a mountain of a man. So he shoots CZs, and I think he's one of our listeners. So
cool.
What's up, Red? Hope you're listening.
Shout out to Red, yeah.
But yeah, he has to shoot and CZ's a fantastic gun.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but it's because there's more room in the trigger guard compared to some other the polymer guns.
Sure, and that's something that just they wouldn't even think of that it boils down to. So something definitely to consider. And the other thing, a lot of people think that you might get a better deal online, and sometimes that's true.
Some cases.
However, by the time, let's say a gun's $400, just as a nice round number. Well, you cannot get it shipped to your house. You have to get it shipped to a dealer of your choice, an FFL dealer or an FFL license holder, which is something like Independence or whatever.
Right.
You got to pay for shipping, and it's usually like second day shipping or next day shipping or whatever because of the rules that you have to ship firearms.
Well, yeah. So handguns have to be shipped within 2 business days, where rifles don't have to be.
Okay. Yeah.
Not only that, once you get the gun shipped, unless you have a really good relationship with your dealer,
there's a transfer fee.
You're going to get charged a transfer fee, which they can go anywhere from in a free country, in a free state, about $20, where at some states it could be $50 or over.
Oh, $100 even, I think. Yeah, I remember hearing somewhere in California it was like $75 or $100.
Of course.
So luckily, I think
transfer fees cause cancer in California.
Prop 65. But even, I mean, thankfully, like in Illinois, I think it wasn't too bad. I think it was $25 or $30 or whatever. But and this may be like an intangible or whatever, but I've noticed that most shops don't really like to do transfers. I think the smart ones don't mind it, but you can tell that they really don't.
Well, I'll be honest, we thought about not doing them here, and I was like, what are you guys thinking? Sure, we may not get the money from the purchase,
but you get the money from the transfer fee.
But it's not even that. It's getting people inside the store.
There's also that.
There's a value to it, because why? If you train your staff and upsell,
because you're going to need extra mags or a holster or a case or whatever.
So there's more to think about than just not wanting to do transfers.
Long-term thinking. There we are, Steve. Smart man over here.
I try.
So, but yeah, I mean, online, let's say you're going to buy a Glock 19 or whatever. Maybe you save $50, $75 as, on a new, apples to apples.
Yeah.
By the time the shipping's done and the transfer fee's done or whatever, you're going to be pretty much out the same money.
Or maybe even a little bit more.
And the other thing, in addition to having somebody come in on the store, but on the flip side of that, you can start a relationship with your gun shop, your local shop. Mm-hmm. And then they might be, they see you in there more regularly, or if you buy more stuff from them, they might be able to cut you a deal a little bit.
Yeah. And I think, at least in my experience of working in shops, and maybe because I was in an area of an authority,
sure,
where I wouldn't mind, like, you know what, not today. Don't worry about it. We won't charge you transfer today.
Really?
Because it's just,
it brings them back, and it forms a good relationship.
Yeah, it's all reciprocal too. So remember, if we treat customers good, customers bring their money to us,
and their friends.
Yeah.
And that's also being a good steward of the Second Amendment, because then they're going to bring friends maybe who haven't shot before, or it's a friendly place to go. So,
and hopefully my comments don't make it sound like we're all about the money.
No, but even when we had Jared in, the owner, I mean, it's a business.
Yeah, we got to make money. We got to pay the bills.
Right.
And if customers don't come in to see us, then we're going to shut down.
And what's the point? Yeah. So that's basically the main way of buying a firearm. We touched on online too. Mm-hmm. Another place I would go to is gunwatcher.com.
And I've never been on there.
That's so it's a pretty cool website. You type in what you're looking for, let's say like a Walther PBQ, and it'll bring up not only auctions, but it'll also bring up...
Does it show pictures of dumpsters?
No, because Walthers are fantastic guns. Okay. If you try Glock on there, maybe. It shows pictures of Tupperware.
Tactical Tupperware.
But it'll bring up listings with that particular gun of auctions of different websites throughout most of the internet, and you can kind of see, again, what your price is, or if there's good deals or anything like that. And if you find a good deal online, then you might be able to price match or something too. So it's definitely good to do your research.
And there are a lot of good, reputable online dealers, not just Gunbroker, like you're saying.
Sure.
Even Guns America have a pretty good place to purchase.
Yeah.
And for some of the older stuff, now I forgot the name of it. I think it's Deary's Guns, or there's a lot of people. Are you idiot? That's anyway. They sell a lot of. They'll purchase old firearms,
sure,
and then they sell them with 100% warranty.
Oh wow.
That's
impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're looking for something old or uncommon or weird or whatever, then
you're probably going to have to go online.
You're going to have to go to Gunbroker or go to another website to find it.
Or if you can find a good, solid gun show. Now, there's... unless you don't want to talk about gun shows
Let's talk about gun shows. Well, yeah, we'll move along to gun shows, because that's another way to buy a gun.
Yeah, and straight up, first off... You know exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a gun show loophole. Every licensed dealer has to perform a background check, unless you have a concealed carry permit in the state respective that's already shown that you've passed a background check. There's no such thing as a gun show loophole.
Right.
Nothing.
And it's in the best interest of everybody to not try to sell guns under the table.
Oh, man. It'd be awesome to get somebody from the ATF in and talk about that.
That would be great.
I doubt that'll happen. The guys here in Boise are actually pretty damn cool. They're awesome, but I don't think it would be in their interest to want to be on a podcast. Nonetheless,
let us know on all the secrets.
Nonetheless, gun shows, like I said, when I was a kid, gun shows used to be awesome. I used to go with my brother to the gun show in Salt Lake.
Oh, that had to have been huge.
The Crossroads in the Salt Palace. And if you guys understand Salt Lake or been down there, the Salt Palace is where the Jazz used to play.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a huge convention center, and it was amazing. Like, tons of great firearms. no trinkets and garbage, but you'd have firearms and parts and a lot of stuff that's really eclectic that's hard to get.
Right.
And it seems like now, and I don't know if it's just the old boys don't want to empty their safe or whatever, and that makes me think of something else. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
There are still some good gun shows. And if you're looking for cowboy stuff and if you don't mind driving, you hit the one in Bozeman, Montana.
Oh, yeah?
It's a bit of a drive, but
you can make a weekend out of it.
If you're looking for something kind of old school cowboy type stuff, they don't really do a lot of black guns.
Yeah.
Bozeman's where to go. And
No way.
And if you're going on the way to Bozeman, there's an awesome gun store in Virginia City, just outside of Virginia City, that is the bomb.
See, but that's the stuff that you get when you're not online and you're plugged into your kind of area and community and stuff. When you do some exploring and digging and stuff, you can find some cool stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And there are deals to be had at gun shows.
Oh, sure.
But then if you're dealing with a private individual, then you got to kind of work, because they're going to, their stuff's gold.
All of it.
So you kind of got to work with them, do some wheeling and dealing. But there's stuff to be found.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about is, I talked about kind of the old boys.
Mm-hmm.
Those old boys are dying off.
Yeah, sad but true.
And so there's a lot of kids that don't care about what collector stuff Grandpa had.
Or they just don't like guns.
Or they don't like guns. That's
right.
Actually, I had an opportunity that I blew on that very thing.
Really?
I could have ended up with a multi-$1,000
gun collection.
Yeah, well, just one gun.
Oh, really?
That I totally missed the ball on. I could have paid the guy probably $75 cash for a $10,000 rifle. I should have done it. Anyway, 2020, right?
Sure.
So think about it. If you're into old collector firearms,
mm-hmm.
there's probably going to be an increasing surplus at some point because those old boys are dying off.
Right.
I know if my grandpa had collected firearms, I probably wouldn't sell any of them.
No, I wouldn't either. My dad's got a couple of my grandfather's guns, and those aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Even just the sentimental value.
But it's going to happen. So if you're into the old stuff, and if you don't mind spending some money, because that stuff has really gone up in value a lot.
Oh, for sure.
For example, the Colt Python.
Thousands of dollars for that firearm.
15 years ago, you could have found one for $600-800. Now you're gonna same quality again. You're gonna be spending
three times that much.
$2,000-$4,000.
Yep. But that's just the way of the world. It's like any other kind of hobby or collector kind of item.
Yeah.
Another good place that just reminded me of that is auction sites.
Oh, yeah, I was going to bring that up too.
And pawn shops. Obviously, pawn shops are kind of like a dealer thing or whatever.
I struggle with pawn shops.
Yeah, you're not going to necessarily find much good stuff there, but auction sites could be quite good.
Well, my buddy years ago came over here for something.
Yeah.
And he found an 03 Springfield. 03
Really?
A3. That was an issued gun.
Wow.
That some kid must have needed some drug money or something. It was his grandpa's gun.
Wow.
And my buddy Grant picked it up for a smoking deal.
Yeah.
That is one of the best firearms I've ever shot.
I believe it. That's crazy.
He ended up selling it and making a profit off of it.
Sure.
He had it for a while.
Yeah.
But there is some gun or pawn shops you can find a deal. But you got to be willing to barter. Never pay sticker price at a pawn shop.
Yeah, and that's another good point too. Is that don't ever be afraid to kind of wheel and deal a little bit. Whether you're at a show or a gun shop or whatever, you can usually get the vibe. Trust your gut and see if they can do anything about it.
And pawn shops are notorious for paying pennies on the dollar for a product.
Oh, for sure. For anything.
So they're going to be making 40, 50, maybe even 80%. Yeah, 80% on a gun. So don't be scared to barter with them or dicker with them, and don't be scared to walk away.
Yeah, that's the other thing is, thankfully guns are not in short supply in America. And so you'll be able to find another deal. Another deal will come up. The gun will come up again.
You might have to wait.
Yeah, that's one of the big things, especially if you're looking for something specific. So like the Walther P1 that I bought, like I'd wanted one for years, but I was just like, oh, I'll get one whenever. And the reason that I got one when I did is because the prices kept going up slowly but surely. Mm-hmm. And you see that trend over a year or two, and it's going to keep happening. I was patient and saved up some money for it, but I was like, okay, I better do it now.
Yeah.
But that's a different story than like a Glock 19 or whatever, or a very, very common firearm.
And they're not going to really gain in value because of the mass production of it.
There's just so many of them.
unless there's some crazy ban or something that happens, and obviously stuff's going to come up in price. My first gun, for example, is an SKS.
Yep.
And at the time that was gifted to me, they were like $80, $90.
Yeah.
And now I know I could sell that same rifle for $600. I know I could.
Yeah.
My Nagant, we were talking about.
Yeah, that's what brought it up.
Nagants.
Yeah.
I bought my Nagant from a sporting goods store in Idaho Falls for $89.
Yeah, that was
cash in hand.
That was my first firearm. Was a 1939 Mosin Nagant. Still have it. 110, I think, out the door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they're $200, $300, $400.
And obviously that has to do with import.
Yeah, that too. The scarcity of them.
Yeah. So that's going to change too. So if you're looking for a European or comm block gun, you're going to be spending a little bit more money on them now.
Yeah.
Unless something happens where we can open up the floodgates again from Europe.
Yeah, but that's what also pays to do your research and see where these things are coming from, and just how rare or scarce something might be. But usually, run-of-the-mill firearm, you can usually wait for pretty good deals.
Yeah, and when it comes to that kind of stuff, you really got to pay attention to what you're buying. So, like, if I was looking for an SKS now,
yeah,
something I've learned recently is a lot of times they're like force matching numbers. So they'll go in with an electric pen and like scratch in a serial number.
Really?
To make it look matching.
Wow.
And I don't think that's what the importer's doing, but nonetheless, like there's stuff that happens, or especially comm block guns, you need to be looking at the bores. Because corrosive ammo was a big thing. So, if they didn't take care of their gun in the previous, you could just be buying a lump of turd that's not even worth shooting anymore.
Yeah, and that's can be a problem with buying online too, is that if you're buying an older gun or a comm block gun or a surplus or whatever, you don't really get to inspect it, and you don't get to take your pick. They just take whichever one is next out of the crate, box it up, and ship it to you.
And probably one way to fight that particular thing, especially if you're on gun brokers, you can look at the history of the seller.
Yeah, that too. And that's a gun broker thing. Yeah. But if you're buying it off of any kind of website or whatever, you might not necessarily know unless it's like a big name.
You might get stuffed. But some of that stuff too, there's a lot of parts available. So if you don't care if the numbers aren't matching anymore, you should be able to put it together for not terribly amount of money.
Yeah, and my opinion on that is if you're a collector and you're actually like collecting these things for the historical value and not shooting them, then obviously the numbers matter a lot more. But if you want to go ahead and shoot it, like, I wouldn't worry as much about matching numbers and all that. I would just worry about whether or not it actually functions properly or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times people have brought guns in here, stuff that they've bought or even stuff that they've inherited, and they'll come in, and I've seen it a few times with like Damascus barrel shotguns. Oh, yeah. They'll come in and they're like, I just got this gun. I paid whatever X amount, $100 for it. Yeah. And then, Jeff will go through it because they're worried about it, and it's unshootable, completely unshootable. Really? There's, the barrel could be super thin from corrosion, or honestly, Damascus steel barrels from the older guns. Sure. They can't really handle the pressure of the new ammunition. Oh, wow. And so you just got a grenade in your hand instead. Right. You could blow up in your face. Which would be a bad day. That'd be a terrible day. Yeah. So, there's private party gun buying too, which you can do. You might be able to get a better deal on that. You might be able to trade something, get a little bit more wheeling and dealing or whatever. But there are some cons to it. It's what you see is what you get usually, and usually it's already agreed upon for the most part. Yeah, I would say. And this is where the politics really play. Like they're worried about guns getting into the wrong hands, and I can totally, and I absolutely get that. As a seller, like if I was selling a gun privately, I would only sell it to somebody that had a concealed weapons permit. Same, and that's what I did. And so maybe as a buyer, if you're looking for a deal, like Z Idaho, for example, here in Idaho, be prepared because that might be something that they expect. Yeah, prerequisite. So that's another good thing to bring up is if you're a concealed weapons holder or a CCW permit, you're going to be able to get your gun a lot faster from a dealer or from a private party. Yep, it saves time. Yeah.
so you don't have to worry about waiting or mandatory waiting periods or whatever.
Like you say, some states have that mandatory period no matter
right.
what. Like even if you had a concealed weapons permit, let's just say California, even though there's not a ton of them floating around over there,
right.
there's still a mandatory waiting.
Yeah. So there's a positive to having that, and especially if you're buying a gun private party, because then that relieves the kind of onus on the seller, whether or not you're a prohibited person. Because if you have a concealed weapons permit, clearly you're not.
Yeah.
And
I really hate the idea of universal background checks, and we've talked about this before. I don't need to get into it, but I think it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. So it may sound like a warm and fuzzy feeling, and honestly, you can, and I've done that before as well. Just if you're worried about the guy or gal buying the gun, just come into the store and we'll run a background check.
I think that's something that hardly anybody knows, that people should be shouting from the rooftops, is that you can sell a gun person to person, private party, kind of almost wherever you want, as long as it's not a gun free zone or whatever. So you can do a transfer at a police station parking lot.
Just let them know.
Let them know what's going on when you show up.
But
if you're concerned about it, or come into a gun store, maybe you have that relationship with your gun shop, and they'll be able to run a background check for you.
And honestly, not to talk bad on these guys here, I don't know if they understand the process. It is a little bit more involved. Sometimes we have to take the gun in and put it in our books just to show there was a transfer, because
that it was there.
Because the ATF will want to know, why did you do a background check on this gun that's never been in your books? So there's a little finagling that may have to take place where we take in the gun and then dispose of the gun, but it can be done, and there's an option on the 4473 for that. Yeah.
So it's just know that tool is in your tool belt. Although I will say, jumping ahead a little bit, if you are nervous about selling a gun to somebody, probably shouldn't be selling a gun to that person.
Yeah, as dealers, we do that.
Yeah, you can refuse to sell a gun to anybody for pretty much any reason.
Yeah.
So even if they pass a background check. So that kind of covers buying, I think. We talked about online and gun shows and dealers.
I can't think of anything.
Online gun show loophole is not a real thing.
Nope. It's a farce.
So
and online buying, I think we said that already. You can't ship it to your house.
Right.
That does not exist.
There's only one way that you can do that. Well, there's one way for the average Joe to be able to do that, and that's to get your CNR license.
Yeah.
A curio and relic license.
And you can get an FFL, and we could talk about that in a different show, the process of getting an FFL. You can do it. The ATF doesn't really like dealing with that. But it's not impossible for, like you're saying, to get your curio and relics license. Or
and that's only for a certain classification of firearms that you can have delivered right to your house. But then you're also having a license from the ATF.
Yeah.
So
you're a licensed individual, federally licensed.
It's a whole other ball game.
And the other thing is, too, is if you have a gun that needs fixed, while we're on the topic of shipping a gun to your house. If you have a firearm that's under warranty, or the manufacturer's willing to warranty it for some reason, you can ship that gun as an individual. You don't have to go to a dealer. And it can ship right back to your house.
Yep. Actually, that's what happened with my Walther PPS when it had that trigger guard or trigger issue. I can't remember what exactly it was, but it got recalled. And so I actually used the privilege of working at a gun shop and had Sarah ship it off for me because I didn't want to bring it into a FedEx. But you can. I mean, as long as it's boxed up and ready to go. And usually with a recall, the manufacturer pays for shipping both ways, so you're not out of money in any way. And they will ship it right back to your house. It's fully legal to do that, too. So make sure you don't ignore those recalls just because you're worried about shipping it or breaking the law or anything like that. It's more important to have a safe gun.
And that being said, there is a firearm out there. Maybe some of you guys have the old school, the Ruger 3-screw, just a 22.
Oh, yeah.
I think Ruger made a mistake when they recalled that, and then because you can have a new cylinder fit. Like, for example, there's the old school one that runs the Magnum or the 22 long rifle. Well, there was a while ago they said, "Hey, send it in. There's a safety recall."
Yeah,
and they were putting a new crossbar safety in them and really kind of screwing up the gun.
Oh wow!
And in my opinion, I know they're making it safer, but they never seemed to function as good as they did in the beginning. So that's up to you. If you don't want to do that, that's totally cool.
But if you're worried about shipping, you really shouldn't be.
Yeah. No, it's not as big of a nightmare as what you might think it is if you haven't done it before.
Yeah, and I think I would say, go into a gun shop and ask just how to do it, too, if you need to get walked through it. I don't know. Can't guarantee that they'll ship something for you, but...
No. Well, they may.
They may.
But that comes with... Whoa, excuse me. Ginger beer bird.
The Bundaberg's hitting.
It comes down to the relationship of you and your firearms dealer.
Yep, and if you've been buying guns and ammo and accessories from them, then you do have that good relationship.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that about covers the buying part of it. So moving on to selling, basically there's as many ways as you can buy a gun, you can sell a gun as well. I think the best way to start would be you can sell a gun to a dealer, or come into a shop and sell a gun or put it on consignment.
And be wary, or at least understanding, if you're going to a dealer to sell a gun or maybe trade in for something else, you're not going to get full market value for that gun.
You sure aren't. And it's like selling trading in a car or selling a car to a dealer as opposed to private party selling.
And are there dealers that maybe want to try and take advantage of you? Sure, I'm not saying that doesn't happen.
Right.
But we as dealers need to be able to make money. That's part of the deal.
You got to make a profit on it.
And sometimes, like we already pointed out, sometimes that profit really isn't all that much.
No, I mean, it could be 5%.
Yeah.
But you're going to get some money and you're going to get cash right now, and you're not going to get a hassle.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the main positive about selling to a dealer, is that it's convenient and it's easy and it's fast and it's secure. You're selling it to a responsible organization.
Yeah.
As long as it's the right shop.
Yeah, there might be some shady shops.
Yeah.
In some dark side of town or something, but
generally,
Yeah, if they have a dealer's license, the federal government's making sure they maintain their records and
keep everything above board. Yeah.
And it's a pain in the butt sometimes. But yeah, dealer sales, that's always a good option. I actually have a hard time selling guns. Same
here. I've sold maybe 3 guns my entire life.
Yeah, I'm probably around there too. Most of them, like I say, I keep losing them.
Yeah.
In boating accidents throughout the United States, but I don't know.
Land of 1,000 lakes.
Yeah.
1,000 guns and 1,000 lakes.
Now they know that all my guns are in Minnesota.
Good luck. They're just gonna have to search every lake. Is it 10? I thought it was. Isn't it 10,000 lakes?
I don't know.
No.
Minnesota's not my most favorite place in the world.
It's very cold.
Yeah.
I've never been, but I know it's very cold.
I spent 2 days in Minneapolis in a super exciting EPA class or whatever it was.
Oh, I bet. Did you stay awake the whole time?
It was super exciting.
So that's an easy way to do it. We kind of went over pawn shops already, kind of the same deal. Most pawn shops do have FFLs, so they can handle, the firearms and stuff. But I would say you'd get more from a dealer than you would from a pawn shop.
Absolutely. Like we just pointed out earlier, that they tend to lowball because they usually deal with people that are more desperate. Well,
and the other thing about dealers, too, is that you can bring a gun in and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling this. Can you tell me what it's worth? We're literally going to check Gun Broker and see what it's been selling for and go from there.
And as part of a savvy sell, do it yourself. Do your own homework.
Know what it's worth going in there.
And that way you can kind of negotiate a good fair ground for both of you.
Right. And there's a chance it's not guaranteed, but there's a chance that you say, hey, I want to sell this gun to you guys, but I also want to buy another gun. They might be able to sweeten the deal a little bit, say, hey, you know what, I'll buy this gun and I'll give you this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, for here, we tend to give a little bit more for, in-store credit.
Right.
So it's worth it.
Yeah, and if I'm not really experienced enough with selling to say what that number is generally, but it can vary.
Honestly, there's a benchmark with what we try to, a level that we want to feel comfortable about making a profit. And sometimes we cut that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we really drop it and in a way kind of slice our own throat because we want to retain a customer.
Right, and have somebody come back for a longer term.
Or maybe it's a member that we really value or something like that. Not that we don't value every customer, but I think you know what I mean.
Well, they've developed a relationship.
Yeah.
You know that they're going to come back and they're going to be spending money and supporting the shop in the long run. So, so that's something good if you want to do. But know the price of what the gun's worth going and go to Gun Broker. You can see completed sales too, or completed auctions or whatever. You can do it that way. So you'll know that way. Same thing if you go into a big box store. Just know you're going to get 60% of what you could get for it, maybe.
Yeah, and chances are, and I don't know if this is fair to say, but those big box store employees may not be as knowledgeable or competent as what an actual,
sure,
gun
it's
dealer
possible.
will be.
Yeah, it's possible.
Because most of those folks that come in and they apply for a job and they start by selling shoes and then they get moved to the sporting goods department.
Sure.
It just kind of cascades.
Well, and the other thing too is I think that maybe they check gun broker at those big shops, but I think that they have their own internal listings too about how much to buy and sell guns for.
Sure.
And those could be wildly different than what the real world market price is.
Absolutely.
So something to be wary of. I mean, if it's your only option, then that makes sense. But it's just know you're not going to get. Not going to get your money for it.
So, and normally what we say, if some people are kind of disappointed at the number that we give them for their firearm, I'll refer them to, we mentioned earlier, Z Idaho in Idaho, which is online sales. I mean, it's kind of like a garage sale online. You used to be able to sell stuff on Facebook, and they can do whatever they want. I don't care. Like they decided,
it's a private company.
They decided to cancel that option, which, like I said, they can do whatever they want.
Well, you used to be able to do it on Reddit too.
I had no idea.
Yeah, there was guns for sale on Reddit.
That's too bad. And Craigslist was the same way for a while.
Yep, can't do that anymore though.
And it's just the world we live in.
Yep.
But if you're gonna do like a Z Idle, and there's other pages like that, and I'm sure each state has a page like that.
Sure.
Just again, do your homework. Don't try and gouge somebody.
Right, because you're not going to find that fool who's going to pay $1,000 for a Glock 17.
Yeah.
It's just, in the age of information, it's not going to happen.
No.
So, but let's talk about consignment for a second, because I know at the beginning you talked about how much you love consignment.
Oh boy.
And so, I have no idea what consignment is. I know kind of what it is, but.
So really what consignment is somebody comes in and says, hey, I don't have the time to sell this gun, or I don't want to deal with, maybe getting the gun into the wrong people's hands.
For sure.
So will you consign this gun for me? And we take, I think, 15%. In each store varies, and that might have changed. It's been a while since I looked at that policy here at the store.
Sure.
Which means we take 15% of what the gun sells for. So in consignment, somebody says, hey, I have this rifle. I want $600 for it. And we'll ask them, okay, what's the most you'll take? What's
the least you'll take? Sure.
So we can kind of do the negotiating for them, because we don't want to be calling somebody on the phone, hey, he just offered this.
$550? Will you take?
So we have that information, and I'm pretty sure most dealers do that same kind of stuff that are doing consignments.
Yeah, you're just paying the dealer then a percentage to sell it for you, it sounds like.
Yeah, and auto dealerships will do the same thing. They'll let you consign a car on their lot. Some of them will, I should say.
Right.
It's like I said, it's kind of a hassle for a dealer sometimes to deal with it, because sometimes the gun the customer wants to sell, he's asking way too much for what the gun is worth.
Yeah.
And even under counsel, I was telling you, excuse me, another one. I was telling you off the air that I've had customers come in on consignment and they'll like hundreds of dollars over what the gun is really worth, or the market is flooded on a particular firearm that, well, this is what it's worth. This is what I paid for it. And sometimes what you paid for it was too much. And when you consign it, you're not guaranteed that amount back.
Yeah, and that's one point that's actually probably pretty good to bring up, is that unless it's a rare gun and you kind of know what you're doing in the buying and selling of firearms, you're not going to make what you paid for it.
No.
On your general run-of-the-mill garden variety pistol or rifle, you're not going to get what you paid for.
No, and sadly, too, on that same point is we've had guys come in with their Glock. Well, I put a agency trigger, and these are Trijicon sights, and look, it's got this. I don't care what you did to the gun.
Right.
The gun is worth this much, and yeah, you might be able to get a little bit more out of these parts, but if you're trying to sell me this gun, I can get those parts at cost, which is far less than what you
paid for it. Yeah.
And so that is frustrating as a seller, because I've pissed a lot of people off with that attitude. That's just. It's reality.
Well, the other thing is that when you modify a gun, you're modifying it to your tastes.
Yeah.
Just like you're modifying a car or something to your taste.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody else that has that same taste, but it might take a little bit to actually make it happen.
It's very hard to find. And, then it might turn a lot of people off if it's maybe the night sights that they don't like, or maybe the stippling job or something they don't like.
And I've seen some pretty nasty
gnarly stippling jobs. Yeah. So you never know. So that's the reason that you're not going to get that money of those accessories back, so.
Hi, Mikey.
Hello. Like I said, we're recording in the gunsmith room, so got guns coming in and going out.
You never know what happens in the gunsmith shop.
Never know. So, You can sell guns online too. Like we talked about GunBroker, that's a great place.
Yeah, and you can list as a private party on GunBroker, but you have to ship it from a dealer because there has to be, I guess, a chain of custody is probably the easiest way to say it.
And any sort of interstate firearm transactions have to go through a dealer too.
Because there might not be, maybe you don't understand that, well, I can't sell this gun in Ohio or California, where the dealer would be like, no, sorry.
Yeah, not going to happen.
Ship that gun.
Right. And, or like Cook County in Illinois or anywhere. Yeah, there are certain places that have restrictions like that,
Yeah.
So that's good to know. But yeah, you can go on to Guns America or,
And
GunBroker.
I remembered that other. It's Dury's Guns. Did I say that?
No, you didn't.
That was that one website that had all that. Dury's Guns, and that's a pretty cool website.
Yeah,
they got a lot of stuff. And
there's cool to check out.
And there's some other ones that maybe, and I think they do consignments on there too. But be prepared to ship it because I think they're out of Louisiana.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can't just order a gun from somebody across the country and expect them, to just ship it right to your door. It has to go from one dealer to another dealer, and that does cost money sometimes. Yeah. But, normally the buyer pays for shipping.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you can list I'm pretty sure it's, free or pretty cheap to list it on GunBroker.
They take a percentage.
They take a percentage, just like eBay, basically. But it's convenient. You're then broadcasting your sale to people across the country.
Well, think of the impact now that people can see what you're asking, or what you're peddling. Yeah, and I've seen some amazing deals on GunBroker.
Yeah, there's some super cool stuff that comes across there, so it's cool to check out every once in a while. But there are other websites too, like I said, like Guns America, or you might have a local social media page or something like that you're able to do that on. Just kind of casting that wider net for people to see. So, and you can do one locally, like you said, Z Idaho's a thing or whatever. And that leads to a face-to-face transfer too, which is, there's nothing to be afraid of with a face-to-face transfer. You just want to make sure
and I would put a caveat to a face-to-face. I would find a very public place to do it within safety.
That's why I said like a police station parking lot or like a Walmart parking lot.
I kind of, I don't know the best way to put it. I kind of put a lady customer into place because she sold a gun.
Yeah.
And had them come to their house.
That was going to be part of my advice is do not go to their house or bring them to your house to sell a firearm.
And it should be pretty obvious, like stuff we see in society now, that why that is a bad idea.
It's just common sense.
It should be.
Yeah.
And so, find even kind of like, well, better not do it inside the store. Maybe we could be dinged for unauthorized sales on a licensed premises. But
you can do it in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually a very public place or a place where there's like multiple people around, or even bring a friend or a family member with or something, the good thing about Idaho's legislature with selling firearms, I don't know if it's a national or a federal kind of thing, but the onus really is on the buyer, at least in Idaho, where, you, as long as you don't have a reason to believe that the person you're selling the firearm to is a prohibited individual, the onus is on them.
Yeah.
And if they're buying a firearm as a prohibited person, then they're the ones, like you said, that are going to get a felony and
with a
weapons charge and all that kind of stuff.
And like we said before, if it doesn't feel right, like if you get this feeling in your gut, then don't follow through on the transaction. Yeah,
and like we said too, make sure that if you really want to double check to make sure that they have a CCW permit. And you can put that in a personal ad too, or like a face-to-face ad.
I would highly recommend, if you're thinking about selling a firearm that way, that is the only restriction, or whatever you want to say, that something that has to happen is they have to have a permit. Yeah,
and you can write up a bill of sale like you would for a vehicle or anything else, and you can get their information and write down. I did that when I sold an AR.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
I had a bill of sale, and I had 2 copies of it, and I wrote down my name and the guy's name and his CCW license number and all that. And that way, then, in case anything ever does happen, I can say, well, we sold it on this date and blah, 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 and here you go. So
and it really is a CYA thing anyway.
Yeah, it's cover your own self. So, and then, I think that's all about the ways to sell it, too. It was a lot shorter.
a lot shorter than
sell it online,
What's the best deal you've ever found?
The best deal I've ever found.
Whether you bought it or not, but is there something you're just like, damn, that's awesome?
It's funny. Most of the police trade-ins, if they're 9s, are pretty good deals, especially if you just want to get into something pretty easy. Or I got my PPS for under $300, and it was brand new.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool.
Smoking deal.
Yeah, so I was pretty happy with that. I think they've kind of come down from, because they used to be like $400 or $500, and they've come down now. I think to about $350 or whatever.
Well, that frame size is getting pretty saturated. So
yeah, they were one of the first ones though in the subcompacts. So.
Yeah, they were, and then I think Smith kind of jumped on the wagon after PPS.
And Glock did as well. So, but
and just by way of the weeds, have you seen Springfield's new gun?
No, not yet.
The Hellcat?
No.
It looks incredibly similar to the 365.
Really? Oh, I did hear about it though.
Yeah,
where it's like a PS 365 knockoff, pretty much.
Yeah, it's an interesting looking gun.
We'll have to see if we have one here.
I don't think we do, but I think it'd be something I'd buy.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just by way of information.
I don't know. The more I see that 365 though, the more I kind of want one of those.
It's that Smith's or that Springfield's a 13+1.
Wow.
Standard.
That's pretty crazy. Is it pretty? Is it bigger than the 365?
Looks a lot
shockingly similar.
Yeah,
interesting.
But they'd been working on it, and honestly, the industry, they work on stuff for years before it shows up. But
yeah, there's a lot of design work.
But you never
stuff.
know. Maybe in the meantime, somebody left SIG and went to work for Springfield and
said, "Hey, guess what they're doing?
I could show you something cool.
Now we're gonna do this."
Anyway, sorry, that was just
I had a Smith & Wesson 6906 that I got for like $250. That was pretty cool.
It's kind of a clunky gun, though.
It is, but they're selling for more. We got that 4006 out there that's selling for $350.
Yeah.
So
they do hold their value. And Smith makes a good gun.
Yeah, and the more you're in the gun like world, like the more you'll see like what you'll know kind of the general ballpark for what's worth what, unless like it's like super rare or anything like that, But it's. What about your deals?
I have come across some stupid deals in my day. Like I've picked up. I have a Mossberg, a 500 that I picked up. It was a little beat up, and I ended up Cerakoting it here, actually.
Oh, is it the blue one?
Yeah, put some money into it, and it's pretty damn good. I think I paid $80 for the
Really? Wow.
It was just beat up and was terrible looking. A lot of surface rust, but
sure.
If you have the ability to clean it up, why not?
Well, there's a good tip though too, is that maybe a gun just hasn't been taken care of.
Yeah.
And that if you have the know-how how to clean it up or maybe an access to Cerakoting or can get it Cerakoted for, relatively cheap, you might be better off buying that,
And it might be a good investment too.
That's true too.
I knew some people that do that. I had a chance to buy a Model 700 for dirt cheap.
Really?
But I didn't jump on it in time.
Man.
I was just going to buy it for the action because it was kind of beat up.
Yeah.
But it was long action. It would have been a fantastic
That would have been great. Yeah.
Let's see. I've seen another deal. We talked about Gunbroker. I've seen a Chi-Tac intervention go from that shop in Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
Extra magazine. I don't think the gun had ever been shot other than factory testing.
Really?
And it went for $8,000.
Wow.
Maybe even less than that. With 400 rounds.
That's impressive.
It was a smoking deal.
That's a smoking deal.
I think it was $8,000, and that's a $15,000 gun.
Yeah, somebody got lucky with that one.
Yeah.
So, but that's what you get for cruising Gunbroker. You know what I mean? You never know what you'll find there. So,
no.
Yeah. So I think about that covers it. I mean, we're just about out of Bundaberg now too.
I got more.
Well, I've been enjoying it. I got some left, but
the bottom is where all the because the ginger settles back down.
Sure, yeah.
That's where the best part is.
That's the treat at the end. Nice.
It's also where the most saliva is too. So.
Oh, sure. It's just a cocktail of everything. But yeah, I think that covers it. Buying, selling, trading. I mean, kind of the same deal.
And what are some of the deals you guys have found?
Yeah, tell us some of your deals.
And I mean, you don't have to tell us, well, I bought this, and this. But maybe you come across something. Like I said, I had a chance to buy it was an old 22. And it was in amazing shape. Old octagon pump action.
Wow.
And I think that gun probably would have retailed for in the thousands.
Yeah.
It was in really good shape. And the guy he walked into the gun shop over there, gun store, and they weren't going to buy it.
Really?
They didn't want it. They wanted nothing to do with it.
Crazy.
Because they had one that they'd bought, and that's why
that was sitting there.
But somebody had cut the barrel off, and they lost their shorts on it. It wasn't an original gun. And so they're like, nope, I can't even sell this one. I don't want it.
Wow.
And I was with a friend of mine. I swear I shared this story before. I was with a friend of mine, and as the guy was walking, I was like, man, Dave, if I had cash, I bet that guy would take $70 for that. He's like, what do you think that gun's worth? I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000. So I got money in my wallet right now. It's like, well, I don't want to spend your money.
Yeah, that's crazy. But that's the way of the gun world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let us know some of the deals you got. Email us podcast@iishooting.com or connect with us on Facebook at Range Minded Podcast and at Instagram, too.
Word.
It's always a good time.
Yeah.
So we'll close on that for now. Thanks for listening, and we will.
Hey, and drink a Bundy and let us know what you think of that.
Yeah,
too.
let us know what you think of a Bundaberg. Give us your own review because
available at Costco and World Market.
I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Now you know why I drink them.
Yeah, I can't drink them every week like you do.
And it's not something I can drink all the time. Once a week's good enough.
Once a week's good enough. So we'll close on that for now. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Peace out.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.